I have to admit, I haven't touched a WearOS device in many a moon. It was in fact over 2 years ago when I last touched a watch graced by Google's wearable OS, a then already old Moto 360. This then is somewhat a breath of fresh air. The amazingly named TicWatch Pro 3 Ultra GPS from Mobvoi is one of the latest and greatest wearOS watches. So at £250, is it worth buying? Should you consider it, or should you go with something with Tizen or of course Apple's offering? Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas and this is my review of Mobvoi's TicWatch Pro 3 Ultra GPS. Let's first break down that insane name. So there is already a TicWatch Pro 3 GPS, it's the step down model from this and was released before it. It is in many ways similar to this watch, but the newer Ultra model has claimed better battery life and improved heart rate reading. It also adds mil-spec 810G to the Gorilla Glass for claimed better durability. Unfortunately, I have not had access to one of the older models to do a side-by-side comparison, but there are plenty of those online. The Ultra model in the UK is around £290 normally, but it is currently on sale and it puts it in contention with some pretty stiff opposition. Namely, we have the Apple Watch SE, the Huawei Watch 3 Active, and Samsung Galaxy Watch 4. It's going to be difficult to top those, but Mobvoi has pushed some interesting features to propel the wearOS equipped timepiece along. Chief among which is its dual display. On top of the AMOLED display is a basic LCD with your essential info such as time, step count and battery life. This doesn't require much power to run, and so you're able to leave this on full time as you're always on display, and it really sips juice. The main OLED display only comes on when you activate it. This is a measure to increase battery life and I have to say it does a good job. When you have the watch in essential mode, which can be accessed in the watch menu, you'll have that sort of dumber display on all the time with optional backlight colours. This really does improve battery life in essential mode. I mean, we're talking weeks instead of days at this point, but obviously you miss out on many of the features that the watch offers in its full fat modes. Setting it up was pretty easy. I had it connected to an iPhone 13 Pro, which was fairly simple. It guides through everything you want on the watch as well as on the phone. Even though I was connecting a wearOS and Android based operating system to iOS, it was pretty much completely painless and was very seamless. Not quite as integrated as Apple's watchOS, but definitely close. However, it's worth mentioning if you want to access more watch faces on the iOS system and maybe on the Android system as well, you will need to download the separate Mobvoi app, which is not guided through when you set up the watch. It's something I actually had to Google and find out later on. Let's talk about software. My TicWatch Pro 3 Ultra is running wearOS 2.34, the latest update that it claims cannot be upgraded any further in my region. No options to go later than this. Sorry guys, if there is a newer update, I cannot access it on my model. The software is clean and easy to use. The menus are rather intuitive, especially with the touch interface. It makes a lot of sense. From the main screen, the top right button takes you to the app drawer and the bottom right button takes you to the workout selection. A swipe up displays your notifications, a swipe down your quick settings toggles, a swipe left to your Google page, and a swipe right to your activities. The animations are fluid and you definitely get a sense of snappiness from swiping around. This is likely thanks to the speedy Snapdragon 4100 and 1GB of RAM. Those are definitely high in specs in the watch space, but there is a 4100 plus CPU out there which unfortunately this watch misses out on. You can install apps like Strava and MyFitnessPal through the Play Store directly on the watch, which is really cool. In fact, something I wasn't expecting to see was a full-size keyboard when I went to search. It's actually more usable than it looks. The wearOS and Mobvoi apps, both of which are needed on your smartphone, are relatively intuitive, though I found their settings and configuration menus not to be nearly as comprehensive as the Garmin one that I recently tested. There just doesn't seem to be so much stuff. Calendar, notifications and watch faces, but not much else here. Hardware wise, this thing is chock full of features. It's got heart rate tracking, stress measuring, fatigue sensing, SpO2, HD, PPG, LOL and so on. It's all contained in a mil-spec 810G housing as I mentioned before that feels very robust yet minimal and clean. There are just 2 buttons and some minute indicator accents surrounding that 1.4 inch 454p AMOLED display. That display is really nice. It's bright, it's crisp, it's colourful. I happen to really like the dual display tech here. It also means that the main display looks so much better in contrast to the essential display. Anyway, I digress. Everything from reading maps to checking the weather is really enjoyable on this watch, thanks to the relatively large, plenty bright and sharp screen. But of course, one of the reasons why smartwatches are so popular these days is their fitness tracking. This is something that the TicWatch does, like many other WearOS, WatchOS watches, but it doesn't specialise in it like something from Garmin or Wahoo. I've been running a fair amount recently, so I thought, why not make myself look like a plonker and put a couple of watches on to really test the TicWatch and see how close it can get to a specialist piece of timing gear. I used the Garmin Fenix 7 Pro as the control to gauge accuracy against something way more specialised and a lot more expensive, and here are my findings. As you can see, the TicWatch gets relatively close to the almost £1,000 dedicated sports watch. The distance difference is likely due to the fact that the Garmin packs in a much more advanced GPS system, and the TicWatch just cannot match that. The time difference is slightly due to the fact that there was a delay between me pressing start on one and on the other. That's the sort of thing you can kind of leave out. And the heart rate metrics are within spitting distance of each other. Weirdly though, both systems know my weight and height, and the TicWatch claims that I'd burned far more calories than the Garmin, which is strange, but there we go. And the elevation is a bit off, but in my little 5k experiment, I'm rather impressed that the TicWatch got so close, especially with the heart rate tracking. I know Mobvoi was eager to point out that the TicWatch 3 Pro Ultra packs in better heart sensing or heart rate sensing tech, but it really is quite good. I would say though that the information screens on the TicWatch by default just aren't quite as clear as something on a dedicated running watch. This isn't to say that the TicWatch doesn't pack in plenty of information. There's plenty to swipe around on when you're out doing activities to give you just the metrics that you want. However, that swiping around might be quite good for some people. I find it counterintuitive, and I would prefer to have like a much more basic screen, if you like, and that's just a personal preference thing. You guys might be completely different. You might like having all of that data there all the time that you can swipe around on. However, when I'm focused on doing an activity and an exercise, I kind of want it to be as basic as possible, and I can just glance and really see what I'm looking at. Again, this is personal preference. I'll put plenty of B-roll up on the screen so you can see for yourself. One issue I had with the fitness tracking and that kind of thing is that the GPS took way longer to calibrate on the TicWatch than it did on the Garmin. Now this is something that I've also had with Huawei's wearable. There will be a review coming up on the Watch 3. I just found it took say a minute to a minute and a half to grab GPS, where the Garmin was sort of 1 to 2 seconds. Again, it has much more advanced GPS in that thing, but 1.5 minutes is quite a long time to stand waiting around for it to connect to GPS. If you've just done your warm-up or something, then you're kind of ready to go into it. However, if you sort of plan accordingly, you can set it to try and find its GPS, and whilst doing that, you can do your warm-up. It's not the end of the world, and if you're not buying this for fitness whatsoever, then, you know, feel free to ignore this bit, but it's just something that I noticed. So for £290 or around £250 on sale, should you consider this? I think so, yes, and I'll say why. There's a little bit of a funny story to this. I haven't used a WearOS watch in a while, as you guys know, and I was just sat here and I was writing this review actually on my laptop, and I thought, wow, this is a WearOS watch I would actually buy. And I know this is sort of the thing that many reviewers have come out with on this watch in particular, but this proves that WearOS can be a good watch operating system. You know, you don't have to be tied to a WatchOS or a Tizen. This is actually pretty decent. It might not be as comprehensive as those other two, and I feel like it's still a little bit clunky in places, but I do feel like the TicWatch 3 Pro Ultra GPS or Pro 3 Ultra, just Mobvoi, sort your naming schemes out, please. This watch is a really nice package, and something that maybe if you're not specifically focused on fitness training, but you kind of do it a little bit, and then of course you've got your standard smartwatch features like listening to music based off of it, or, you know, having notifications come up really quickly, checking the time. We all forget what watches are for these days. This is a really good package in a clean, fairly minimalist package that looks like it's going to hold up well in the long term. It doesn't look quite as robust as some other watches, but definitely looks less easy to break than something like the Huawei Watch 3, which is pretty much all glass. And at around £300 it might be a bit pricey. If you can get it on a deal, I feel like it's much more worth it. So if you are on the Android side, I do recommend checking this out. It may be worth it for you. For iOS users, this is still pretty decent, but I do prefer the Apple Watch's integration. It's just a little bit more seamless, and for around the same price, you can get a decent watch. Although it doesn't look nice compared to the TicWatch. The TicWatch does have better, in my opinion, a nicer aesthetic to the Apple Watches. And with that, I want to thank Mobvoi for sending this thing out to review. They didn't get any editorial, control. They haven't seen this video before it goes out, that kind of thing. They just wanted to send me a watch based on a couple of the Garmin reviews I did, and I think that was a really cool experience, something to check out. I might do another video on this further down the line if it gets, and when it gets, WearOS 3, these names, just to see how much better it is. And with that, I want to thank my patrons for being continually supportive. Thank you so much, guys. And I want to thank you guys for watching the video as well. It helps out the channel, and it's nice to create these different videos. I've started to dabble into wearables a little bit more. I find it quite interesting, and finding different ways to film them. I find that the Garmin was kind of harder to film, and it kind of tricks you into trying to rethink how you film technology. Smartwatch is very different, and I actually have been using iPhones to film a lot of the content with them. So let me know what you think about that. Anyway, please do like, comment and subscribe if you're new around here to never miss a video like this one. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.